So I'm back from Benares, also known as Varanasi, and got hopefully some interesting pictures to show you here. I'm going to start with kind of a fun one. This is what we saw in the airport on the way out. I should say that it is a respected custom that whenever you go into a live temple or a place where one prays, that you would remove your shoes. I think this is one of those situations where you just don't want to get mixed up. Do not remove your shoes in the wrong place. So we flew into Benares and took a quick trip out to Sarnath. And Sarnath is a very special place for Buddhism. It's the place where the Buddha taught his first sermon, and essentially laid down the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And so in recent times, as it has been rediscovered, um, and Buddhists who are practicing have come back to Sarnath, a cutting from the original Bodhi tree under which the Buddha taught his lesson was brought back in the early 1900s, and as you can see, that cutting has led to a spectacular tree at a temple in Sarnath. One of the great monuments of the area is the Dhammik Stupa. For those who don't know, stupas originally housed the ashes of the Buddha, but later sort of become a focus for contemplation and prayer. One circumambulates it, walks around while thinking. And so this is a later stupa, made hundreds of years after the death of the Buddha. And at this site in Sarnath, there were hundreds of these little stupas that were made, and so this is kind of a big versus small photograph. Now, there are almost 30 of us on this trip, and to the right over here, you can see the kind of attention that we get. I'm sitting on the bus in this photograph, and you can see hawkers outside trying to sell things to the folks on the bus. We get a lot of attention, and I can't say that that's my favorite thing. At night, we took a bicycle rickshaw ride down to the Ghats in Benares. These are the steps that lead down to the river Ganges. Pretty wild ride. You better hold on because you can get flung from these things. I was actually hit by one on the way back. Have a small cut on my right calf. This is my trophy to say that I've been to Benares. What we were going to see is a relatively recent sort of reinterpretation or revival of the Vedic ritual of putting the Ganges to sleep. So that's what you see there over on the right. It was a pretty interesting set of ceremonies. I was a little bit more interested in the Ganges itself. One of the things that you can do while you're down there is to purchase a candle and make a wish and release it into Mother Ganges, which I did, and you can see to the right my candle along with others floating down past the boats. We actually got to sit on these boats, which are moored. They're not the river is flowing pretty fast, which are moored, and so we actually sat out over the Ganges watching the ceremony, and then the monsoon kicked up, sitting under an umbrella on the Ganges in a boat, monsoon, felt just right. The next morning we got to go into some slightly more sensitive temples, including the place that's known sort of as the cremation ghat. We got a glimpse of a highly politically charged temple, the Golden Temple. None of those allow photography, so instead what I'm going to show you is to the left a street scene, and that was about as wide as these tiny little gullies get. One of the facilitators on the institute said that this is the closest that we would ever get to the experiencing a medieval city. And afterward, I could see what he meant. The widest you would get is 2 people wide. You could at any time run into a cow. There was dung all over the ground. Apparently, it gets cleaned up. We were there very, very early, and things were quite dirty because it had rained the night before and spread trash around. But people were already starting to clean things up, and it would just start all over again for the next day. Totally wild. The sounds, the smells, very disorienting. You move in and out of what seemed like a series of tunnels, and then suddenly you'll be at a spot. I was far from knowing where I was going. One of the things we did get to photograph that day is that people had started their morning by bathing in the Ganges, and one can cleanse themselves. Benares itself is a sacred city where people of the Hindu faith can come and they actually might hope to die in this city. If one dies within the confines of the city, they are released from samsara, which sounds pretty good. And apparently there are people who do this on a daily basis. I saw a woman brushing her teeth in the Ganges. That was a pretty interesting thing. It was pretty amazing. Some of us got our feet in. I didn't. I already had a cut, and I just didn't think that they went together very well. So one of the things you do when you're on a conference or an institute is, a little bit of social drinking. And the local beer that's available in the bars around here is called Kingfisher. So I thought it was a very auspicious sign that on this trip I finally saw a kingfisher. So that's the bird right here in the middle, who has a couple of different colors there on a piece of what's called Indian Gothic. It's actually sort of colonial English influence Gothic revival, but with very Indian touch. So a really nice setup, and I like the contrast between that and the parrot that's over here as well. And yes, I did have a kingfisher later. And because I always show you food, I thought this might be a fun one. We were staying at a hotel that had a really fantastic spread, and so it was mostly Indian, but also a lot of Chinese. And I'd already eaten lunch, and outside of the restaurant itself, near the dessert bar, they actually had they had specially prepared a section of sort of American treats. But they're not quite what you would expect. So you've got the fries or the chips on the far left, but you also have something that are called Palm Williams, which I really wish I had the appetite to try. These sliders are actually veggie sliders, and it looked like somebody had grated carrot on them. And though they had originally been toasted, I'm pretty sure they had been steamed as well at this point. And then tiny little pizzas that are just chock full of olives. It's always interesting to try hybrid foods, so I wish that I had had a chance to try some of these, though I'm not sure that that would have been altogether a positive experience.